Okay, well, hello everybody. Welcome and thanks so much for tuning in here to listen to my discussion with one of our Stage 4 Coaches Corner members. His name is Leo, and thank you so much for chatting with me today, Leo. I really appreciate it.
No problem with it.
Great. And I hope you all really enjoy the conversation today, and that you get some great value in just hearing how a successful trader thinks, how they process everything in a way that unsuccessful traders don't. Because anyone who ever became a good trader started off as a novice. And maybe that's where you're at right now. Maybe you've had some experience. Maybe you've even had a lot of experience, but you're still not getting consistently profitable results. So I think it should be at least interesting for you to hear how a successful trader got to where he is. Maybe you'll hear something that he does that you don't, or a distinction that he made that you haven't made, or just something in the conversation that clicks for you and at least makes you maybe reconsider the way that you are conducting your trading if it's not currently working for you. So without further ado, let's get right to it here, Leo. And first of all, I like to start these conversations off just with a bit of background on the person I interview. And so maybe you could do that, like what how you came to be, because you're in Germany now, right?
Sure, yeah. So
Yeah.
my name's Leo. I was originally I come from England. I was born in Kent, in the southeast of England. But I spent the last 21 years living in Berlin, in Germany. I'm a language teacher and a teacher trainer, and I've been doing that for about 24 years. But in the last 10 years, I've primarily focused on teaching intercultural communication and academic writing at university. But I've been dropping more of that and doing more trading. Long term, that's my plan to do it full time, but not quite yet.
Yeah, to sort of swing right out of the teaching stuff and more into the more trading related. Yeah, awesome. So what got you interested in the first place when you got in trading? That is, like, did you start off trading what, stocks, options, Forex, futures, comic books, baseball cards?
It's a good question. I first started getting into trading back in 2015.
Yeah.
I just got back from Tbilisi in Georgia, where the UK had just won the World Backgammon Team Championships. And I played in that team despite living in Germany, and it was one of the proudest moments of my life. Yeah, it was a great time.
I had no idea.
Well, when I came back to Berlin, a friend of mine who knew about this, and he used to work on the London Stock Exchange, he suggested that I have a go at trading because there are some kind of transferable skills from backgammon to trading. And so he showed me what he was doing, and I thought I'd give it a go. You know, in backgammon, you need to have good pattern recognition skills and also a clear grasp of kind of risk and reward. You've got 15 assets on a board, and you have to place them optimally. So there was some kind of crossover with this idea of pattern recognition, which is quite important in technical analysis. So he showed me, as I said, he showed me what he was doing, and from then on, I was hooked. I opened an account. I read a few books. Something like Technical Analysis and Stock Market Profits by Richard Scharbacher, the Peter Brandt book, Professional Commodity Trader, and Steve Nissen's book, which is the one I really kind of got into, Japanese candlestick charting techniques. So I first started trading stocks and commodities, and I think I remember my first trade was buying VW shares, being in Germany, and
Sure.
VW, can't go wrong with that one. Yeah. I was really excited, but absolutely clueless. I had no real strategy or game plan, as you can imagine. And I blew my account within the first 6 months.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of like Darko's story when he was trading stocks. I mean, yeah. So when you first started trading Forex, then what was your style? Like, were you long term, short term, or how did you approach it?
I first started trading Forex kind of seriously when I joined CC, but that's going forward a little bit in time. But I was originally trading longer term, swing trading. That was with the stocks, but with the Forex, it was more day trading that I was doing that.
Yeah. Whenever anybody starts this business, they go through frustrations, and you're not going to get off the hook. Everybody has to go through it. What about your frustrations, the ones that you faced as you developed? I mean, I know there's probably a lot of them, but like I know, common things are people just can't be consistent, or they system jump or whatever it is.
Oh, heck, every frustration you can think about. I mean, I before I joined CC, I joined various other trading services.
Sure.
But my performance didn't really improve. I lost money on a regular basis. The frustrations were of a psychological nature. The typical mistakes traders do, I've done, and more. The main frustrations were dealing with losing trades and micromanaging a trade. So as soon as my stop was hit, I'd want to make that money back as soon as possible. I got frustrated about that. I'd enter again with larger size, only to see that go against me too. I wasn't really in control of my emotions. I didn't really have a trade plan I believed in, and if I was in a winning trade, I'd be so worried it'd go against me that I'd close half the position very early, and then on any sign of a pullback, immediately close the rest. So my profits were small and my losses were big.
I can almost feel people listening to this nodding their head as you're saying this, because it's so common like that. I remember going through that myself many, many, many years ago now, because I've been doing this for a long time. But it's so common, and it's such a cycle. It really, at the end of the day, it's a psychological game. I mean, because
it truly is. I don't think people fully realize that. Yeah, they ignore that part of it, and this is a major mistake.
Yeah. So at some point, things turned, and so when did you feel that you were finally turning that corner and starting to achieve consistency? Like, is there anything in particular that was a turning point? Maybe something you realized, or a distinction, or an approach that resonated?
Yeah, during this time, I was listening to your YouTube videos. And eventually, after another big loss, I decided to try Coach's Corner. This happened to coincide with Darko joining the service. I think it was October or November 2017.
That's it.
Yeah, and then it really started to get exciting for me. His approach was incredibly refreshing. After joining quite a few services, all fairly high-profile ones, this service was something a little bit different. I found his trading approach very clear and incredibly refreshing, honest, direct, and this really resonated with me. In those days, we were trading these harmonic patterns like BAT and Kami, etc. And I really liked the BAT setup, and I imagined myself as being the best BAT trader, calling myself Batman. And I really liked how Darko tried to make the trading process as objective as possible, and to have clear rules that we should try to stick to. It took a while, but I finally started to find out who I was as a trader, and this was through basically following Darko and seeing what it takes, being on his shoulder, seeing what it takes to have the discipline to stick to a particular system. So I spent literally hundreds of hours back testing different systems and different trade management techniques, all within the framework of what Darko was teaching in his PMAs and pre-market analysis.
Price action reading.
I still lost money in the first year or so, but I was getting close to being a break-even trader. But it was this kind of objectivity and kind of directness that Darko brought, which really made a difference to me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. Like, you'd want to get your trading as objective as you can, notwithstanding the fact that trading is not 100% objective. There are little nuances and interpretations along the way, but generally speaking, we try to make our trading as objective as we can, and Darko's done such a good job of that. And that was the nice thing about the patterns. When I know exactly what you were talking about, and we had a lot of patterns that we were trading, and and they all work. They still work to this day. They're fine. But that's another story. They were just a bit too many and overwhelming, and we've condensed it now to something pretty simple. But you become one of our stage 4 traders, and for those that don't know, that's a person who has become consistently profitable with their trading, and you're able to handle trading because you trade both long-term and short-term. The long-term swing trading is pretty easy because it really doesn't need a lot of chart time. But for short-term trading, we call it scalping. There's a lot of whatever you want to call it, short-term trading. There's a perception that a trader needs to be glued to their computer, staring at the screen. I want to know, I want to get your take on that, because your trading approach is pretty simple and objective, right? And
yeah. So I can tell you a little bit about the approach that I'm doing now. It is short-term trading primarily, and you know, I have a clear business plan, and so the time frame that I like is the 4-hour chart with 15-minute entry. Also the daily chart with a 1-hour entry time frame as well.
sure.
As you said, you know, the perception is that it requires a lot of screen time, but it doesn't have to. In my time zone, I only need to check the 4-hour candles at 9 a.m. in the morning, 1 p.m. In the afternoon, and sometimes 5 p.m., but often a setup at 5 p.m. doesn't get filled until close to rollover. So I need to get filled 2 hours into the new candle, otherwise I cancel. I check the end of day candle at around 11 p.m. and that's it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm trying to cut down on my time I spent in front of the computer. It is a habit. You know, if you are a short-term trader, you can get into the habit of being on your screen, micromanaging your trades, and basically not doing much else. But that's not necessary. Yeah, you don't have to do that. It's still a challenge for me. I do still need to spend less time in front of the computer, but I'm working on it. And as I said, I'm you know, just these 3 or 4 times a day is only the only times that are really necessary to be at your computer to check.
Isn't that interesting? You know, because with short-term trading, with the idea is that we take on trades with very small relative pip risk and with great reward potential. And here, you know, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but with these ACAT, advanced candle action trades, that we have as one of our setups, you don't have to, I mean, you can just check things every 4 hours, and if you have a setup, okay, then it's game on. But you know, if not, you certainly don't have to be staring at your computer all day. But it depends on, you know, what your style is, I guess. But
yeah, it's clearly it isn't necessary, but it is. You know, if you've started off short-term trading and you know, when you're learning, you have to be not to be in front of the computer. But once you get a little bit more experience, you don't have to. But it is a habit you've got to break.
Yeah, well, and once you know what you're going to be doing, like. Just to digress a bit here, we watched Susan's trade today. It was a nice setup on the Aussie yen pair that she's worked out pretty well for her. Or if you know that you're going to be trading, let's say a swing breaker rotation, you can set alerts, and there's nothing to do unless it happens, and you don't have to be entertaining other ideas out of boredom. If you do, that's going to usually cost you. What do you think is the main failing of most traders? Like what key attribute would you say is missing, or maybe there's like more than one?
The main failing of most traders is that they don't work on themselves, and they don't have a clear written down game plan. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't have rules that you set for yourself, then you're just gambling basically. And you know, and the key thing, as you said earlier, is this idea of you know, psychology. You've got to work on yourself about trying to find, you know, an emotional stability. You know, not being affected by losers, which is a big one. You've got to accept that you're going to have losers, and a lot of profitable traders have more than 50% losers. So you know, that can be quite tough, isn't it? Just imagine, you know, 50% or more of your trades are losers, and you've got to be kind of you've got to be okay with that. It's the same in backgammon, to be honest with you, Vic. If you're a 52% winner in backgammon, then you are profitable. Yeah.
No kidding. That's a game I don't really know much.
Yeah. So it is, you know, you've got to accept that, you know, most of the trades that you put on are most likely to be losers, and, you know, you have to be okay with that.
That's fascinating, because it's a game I don't know a lot about, and to say that, and it's like professional gamblers too, that have the same. Well, look at the Turtles. The Turtles were right like a third of the time, and were incredibly successful.
That's right. Yeah, but you've got to be okay with that. You know, you might have 10 losers in a row. Yeah, and how are you going to feel when that happens? And it has happened to me quite a few times, and it's, you know, how you deal with that is this I think, you know, key.
Yeah, well, it boils down to belief. I mean, if you know that these are not all going to be losing trades, there's going to be some nice juicy winners out of these, then you have the confidence to keep trading it.
As long as you've got a 3 to 1, 4 to 1 risk reward ratio, then you can't have many winning trades to be profitable.
Right. Yeah. You can't be taking little tiny profits and big losses. So if there was, people always talk, hey, the secret to my success, was this. And if there was one thing that you would say, consider as being maybe the secret to your success, what would it be? What would
I would say that it's not getting too emotionally involved with the outcomes of each trade, and to see trading as a long-term process with long-term goals, and not focus on the money. Just focus on process. Have your game plan, which is, this is a key. And I would say, this is something that CC could definitely, Coaches Corner could definitely help out with, and encourage people to write trade plans.
Yeah.
And then, the result of an individual trade is just noise. Focus on the long term. Don't get emotionally involved. Try to have equanimity. Don't get too excited if you have a winning trade. Don't get too excited if you have a losing trade.
Exactly.
I think that's what I've been working on, at least for myself, because when you're emotionally involved, then you micromanage, then you do. That's where all the mistakes happen. If you kind of see yourself outside of yourself, if you like, then you can disassociate yourself from the market and from the outcomes.
Yeah, excellent comment on that, because that's, like you say, you're trying to focus on the money part of it, and that's so common when people start, like, because they join because they want to make money, but it's ironic that that's the worst place to be focusing. It's got to be all about process, like you say, and as a result of all of that, you've obviously become nicely consistently profitable, and people always go, how's he doing? What's his performance like? What would you say in terms of that, and just general kind of stuff about overall performance?
Yeah, I'm a profitable trader. I don't think it's too. Shouldn't really be focusing on the kind of the details of that. What one should be focusing on is just on the process, and then anything, money that comes from that is a byproduct of the process. That's what I would say to anybody.
Yeah, and the truth is too, it's a funny thing about results. I always cringe when people post results, because you're not going to get those. Nobody else is going to get those results. So it sets up an expectation that I don't like. And one thing that both Darko and I constantly harp on is this topic of expectations. Like, when people join a service or they buy a course, they expect that they're going to use it to make money with, which is fine, which is good. But the results, and especially at the beginning, don't match their expectations. So, what would you say to those people who really want to get going for the trading, as far as what they should expect?
Well, the expectation be, well, for CC, or for any kind of, if you're joining any kind of trading service, the service it should be educational. So the expectation should be not necessarily to make money, but to educate yourself about the market. If you expect to earn money and you go straight into live trading, you're going to lose for sure. Even it's without a doubt, unless you're a bit lucky in the short term, you might be a bit lucky. So in fact, you shouldn't live trade at all. When you join a service like CC, you should be very clear about the system the service is offering. Once you're clear about the system and you've demonstrated it profitably, then maybe your expectation should be to make a small profit or break even after a year of live trading. But ideally, the expectation be to educate yourself, to understand what you're doing, because that's not easy. It's there's so many things to consider and think about. And if you don't educate yourself, through the information, through the content that is being given to you, if you don't focus on that, you've got no chance, absolutely no chance. So, I'm still making mistakes, along the way. That they are less costly now, but you've got to go through that learning process, and don't live trade straight away. Look at the content. And see it as an education. You're paying for an education. I think that's, if you see it like that, rather than, I'm going to make lots of money, then you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And actually, and that's one thing. The other thing we always tell everybody, we don't run an alert service. Like, you don't sit around waiting for a dark or I to say, okay, here's where you're going to buy and here's where you're going to sell. I mean, if I see an ACAT setup, sure. I mean, I'll say, hey, there's an ACAT setting up on whatever pair, but it's not. It's intended to educate. We want traders to learn to be independent. I was just chatting with a guy today actually who was wanting to join, and the good thing is he has exactly the right attitude. He doesn't want an alert service. He doesn't want to be copying. He wants to learn to do this himself, and I love that. That's just what I want people to think about, because then they have a skill for life. They're not.
Absolutely. I would agree 100%.
I have obviously a biased opinion about what we teach in our services, but we really hope that we can fast track somebody's progress and get them up to speed, more quickly. But first of all, just by being honest with them about the road to success, the stuff that you've just been talking about, but also in helping them develop an actual trading plan so that they can, look through the material and say, okay, this is what I see, this is what I can't see very easily, and all that. But how would you suggest that a person joining either one or both of our services approach our material in a way that would benefit them the best and the fastest possible way?
So I would go through the material, step by step as it's laid out in the, on the website, and then I would decide. You've got to, often when people come into trade, they don't know what their trading style is. They don't know if they're long term. They don't know if they're short term. So
right.
You've got to go through the material, and you've got to decide if you're a short term or a long term trader, depending on your life circumstances. And stick to that. Yeah, I think if you're trying to kind of juggle, at least at the beginning, if you're kind of new to it, both long term and short term, it's not going to work.
That's tough.
Yeah, so you've got to decide, depending on your character, how you are and who you are as a person, and on the time that you have to invest. Yeah, you have to look at that as well, how much time you can spend in front of the computer and to look at the materials. Then you should, say, okay, I'm going to go be a short-term trader, or I'm going to be a long-term trader, and then stick to that. Yeah? Then come up with a game plan. So you've got all this information, the trade management, the setups, market analysis. You've got all the information there. And then once you've gone through that, following the PMAs, etc., following the information that's given every day, come up with a game plan. And then what I would suggest is, I don't know if people do this, but you should encourage people to say, okay, send us your game plan, send us your plan, and we'll just have a quick look at it and give you some feedback on it, and then off you go. Send it to you or Darko to look over, and then it shouldn't take too long. I don't think just have a quick check over, and then that would be the best. So at least they've got a written down game plan that's been checked by a coach.
That's a great idea.
I would say that would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that'd be a great idea. This is a question probably related to some other ones above, but like, if you could go back in time, what would be the one thing that stands out for you that would have helped you, would have sped up your development the most and been the most beneficial, like a key thing that would have made a difference earlier on?
I think rather than going straight into live trading, I would have educated myself first by doing a trading service and demo trading until I felt confident enough to know what I was doing. I was all like, I'm a great backgammon player. I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. So hey, this can't be so difficult. You're going in totally naively, thinking that that you don't need to educate yourself in order to learn a skill. Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard skill to learn, to trade successfully. There are lots of things to consider. So I would not have gone directly into live trading. I would have joined an education. I would have educated myself as much as possible first, rather than getting too excited about the money and how I could become independent and do this, that, and the other. As Darko often says, it's. When you go to university, you spend 3 or 4 years or even more to train yourself in particular. It takes a long time. Yeah. So see it in the long term. Don't focus on the money. Educate yourself first, then go into the live trading, and you're in a much better position to be successful.
Well, that's a super good comment, because what's the point of trading with live real money when you've proven nothing to yourself? And that's why we say, look, either don't trade, or when you do start trading, trade a couple of micro lots, because it is not about the money. It's about, can you do this and be consistently profitable? Like, the last thing we want is somebody to go and burn a bunch of their hard-earned cash because they have no idea what they're doing, and they think they do, or it's a bit of a gamble. Gambling is not, this isn't the arena for that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I learned the hard way, you know, just kind of going into it gung-ho, losing a lot of money, and you just think, well, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Leo, I got some. I can tell you some horror stories about my losses of, because I was a futures broker for 5.5 years, and I saw some pretty bad carnage there once in a while. The other point I was going to make too, about, we're talking about long-term and short-term trading, is that everything we do is scalable. So don't get too hung up on you know, the service that you're joining. And in fact, Darko's has got more material in it as far as price action reading, as his price action reading school videos that he has and everything. They're very, very good. But we both have a, you know, that new member quick start guide that's the basics of everything. But
yeah, absolutely.
you know, it's all scalable. It doesn't matter what we use the same patterns and the same idea behind key levels of support resistance on higher time frames, etc. Yeah. You've been with our CC services for quite a long time now, and not only do we greatly appreciate having you as part of our community, and the contributions that you make to the chat, they're really great. I love that. But it's been very cool to watch your development over the years. So I want to thank you so much for chatting with me today, and I don't know if you have any closing comments.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to to talk a little bit about my journey. That is also much appreciated. Trading is a hard business, and to succeed in it, you must have passion for it. I mean, I'm almost obsessive with what I do. The amount of hours that I've back tested, the amount of hours I've put in is huge. So you've got to have dedication, in order to succeed in this business, and that actually does make that you have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
In your time, if you watching Netflix or doing other stuff, that you just got to cut that out, and focus on learning. You got to make quite meaningful sacrifices if you want to be successful. Well, and if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, then you probably won't succeed.
Yeah, and there's just no getting around it. We just had the Olympics, and I love the Olympics. I always watch them, and it's the same thing. Those people didn't get there by accident. They dedicated their life to it in their cases. And if you come in 6th in an event, that's fantastic. I mean, you're talking about what's the population, 7 billion people in the world or whatever it is, and you're 6th. I mean, geez, it's just amazing what they do. And so, but the point is, it's because they're dedicated and they're going to do it. They're committed, and they put their whole heart into it.
Yeah. If you don't do that, then you're not going to you're just going to be average, and you're not going to make the most of what you might have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's getting over that hump and putting in that initial time, and then you're okay. You're there. Whether maybe you're going to become a professional or some kind of teacher or a I don't know, doctor or whatever it is, you do have to put that time in, the initial time, for sure. I have one more question, and this is going to catch you off guard a bit, but it's an important one. What is your favorite beer in Germany?
I'm afraid that it's not that. For me, it's an alcohol-free beer.
Oh, that's all right too.
It's an Erdinger. It's an Erdinger alcohol-free Hefeweizen.
Nice.
Which is, I think that's translated as a wheat. It's a wheat beer. Yeah. It's an Erdinger. It's an alcohol-free one. I'm actually teetotal. I don't drink alcohol at all.
Oh, good for you. Well, my brother's the same way. He decided never to drink. That's for no particular reason. He just did. But anyway, cool. Oh, that's good. Well, I was just stupid.
You got the full range here, though. The Germans are very proud of their beer. They have. If you want to talk about processes. Yeah, they have very strict processes of making a beer here, and they're very proud of the pureness and the, how can one put it? Yeah, the rigidity of the process to make the best beer in the world. That's what they would say, I would think.
And that's a great analogy, because what's the difference between that and trading? Like, it's a process and they stick to it. They don't deviate and screw it up.
That's right. That's right.
Well, this is all great stuff, Leo. And it's traders like you who take a proper and a measured and a realistic approach to trading and actually put the time and the work into it that provide what I would call a fair and honest inspiration to others, not a bunch of hype and garbage and misleading information. And I got to say, like, I cringe when I see online material promising, ridiculous results. Yeah, you're going to make hundreds of pips by the end of the week and this. And I hope that we are a kind of a counterbalance, a counter to those kinds of claims, because at the end of the day, we don't want people living in hope and dying in despair, all because of misleading information. It's our job.
Absolutely. There's some, just to say, sorry to interrupt you, there's so much out there. The BBC have just released, it was last week, I posted it on Darko's chat, but not in the Scout. There's a new documentary, it's called InstaTrader on the BBC, and it's focusing exactly this guy. He investigates a couple of services that are running in the UK, have a lot of followers who are promising, a lot. Yeah, and he investigates this, and it's really, really interesting to see the techniques that they get to bring people in and to basically rip them off.
Oh man, I'd like to see that. Actually, you can post that in the scalp chat room too, if you can.
I will do. It's called InstaTrader. It's very, very interesting. It's typical, I think, of a lot of the bullshit that's out there.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we just feel like it's our job and our sole intention to give traders a legitimately fair chance. And I know that we do that. And I can sleep just fine at night because I know that we're, trying to, I've seen what happens when they don't do that. And I've had lots of experience and that side of things with other people. And it's why I brought Darko on board back in 2017, because if any of you that are listening to this have ever listened to Darko's podcasts, you'll see why he's here. He is honest, he's straightforward, and Leo, as you know, he doesn't mince words. He's and it's good. He's been around the block, and he knows what BS and what's BS and what's legit. And I would really encourage all of you to go and listen to his podcast if you haven't already.
They're inspirational. They're inspirational.
They really are.
His kind of hard love is what we need.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's tough love, but he knows what it takes to get to where you want to be. So like I say, we only have that one goal, and that's to give our traders an honest opportunity and a realistic chance of using price action analysis in a way that tilts the odds in their favor. And obviously it works. Traders like you are proof of that. But whether it works for each individual is going to depend on what they do with the material and how committed they are. And like I've said so many times, it's intriguing to me that everybody gets the same information, but the successful traders use it in a way that the struggling traders don't. And a huge part of everything that we touched on this is the psychological factors, because the hardest part of trading isn't learning the concepts of how to trade and draw support resistance or recognize a pattern. What does an ACAT look like? You can learn that pretty easily. It's the psychological part of applying all that is so tough. Embracing the fact that it is an odds game. There will be losses, but like you were saying, Leo, saying it and living it are two different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to thank you again, Leo, for taking the time to impart your experiences with trading, and I really hope it helps and inspires others to see that it is definitely possible to become a consistently profitable trader if you will approach it with the right mindset, the right attitude, the right expectations, and just be prepared to put the time in. And you just heard from someone who has certainly done that. So Leo, thank you again. We really appreciate your chatting with me today.
No problem, Vic. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Great stuff. And so we'll see you in the chat room tomorrow. And thanks again to everyone listening to this interview. And of course, if you have any questions, or just send me an email. I'm Vic Noble, VICNOBLE @forexmentor.com. And I'd be happy to get back to you. Thanks again. Take care.